So again, my name is Marianne Linder, and I'm the Senior Manager of WEFTEC Education. I'm one of the staff that work on WEFTEC Education, and I am greatly excited to work on this. Interactive sessions are a passion of mine. And the reason they are is adults learn best when they can conceptualize, kind of feel, touch what they're trying to learn. So really, what does that mean? It means when you can talk to someone and say, well, we do this, or how'd you do this? And you can really dive deep, you will retain and get so much more out of your learning. The fact is, at this point, in reality, when it comes to lectures, we can only hold about 3-4 minutes before our attention span starts to wander. After that, you've got to be a pretty darn dynamic speaker. I mean, not gripping the podium, not death by PowerPoint. You've got to be really fluid as a speaker to keep people interested. And so interactive sessions just help people retain and get the value out of paying for their WEFTEC experience. So at this point, we're about 50% traditional, that's lecture-based, and 50% interactive-based. And that's, again, to give people a choice, because we are not all about, being mean and saying you have to do it this way, but we are trying to help people have a better experience and get more out of what they're paying. So that's why we're doing this. So I'm going to share my screen. And we'll go through a couple slides. Sorry. From beginning. So this is the interactive training, and I'll just check, make sure we've got everyone in. We do. Okay. So first of all, some best practices. So I'm going to say this, sorry, y'all. Didn't mean to stop the share. Okay, here we go. This session is for facilitators and speakers, because I think it's helpful if everyone knows what's going on and has an opportunity to understand the concepts behind this and what we're trying to do. So some of this is geared a little bit towards what we're asking the facilitators to do, but as a speaker, it helps you understand, and you too can contribute to this. So that's why we're doing it this way. So best practices of an interactive session. Number one, we ask you to feel free to call on participants you don't know personally. Don't always default to calling on the quote experts on the topic and having them speak up. If you call on other people, you create a welcoming environment and one that people feel is trusting and safe for them to contribute. If everyone knows that Bob is the expert on the sunshine and you call on Bob first, you set a tone that you really want to hear from the experts, not everyone else. So try to find other people that you may not know and call on them. In the room, there's a lot of knowledge. View the participants as potential experts. They may not have submitted to WEFTEC, but they may have a great story or a great tidbit. Just because they're not speaking doesn't mean they don't have something worthwhile to share. Very few adults have like 0% knowledge. They have some, and they're looking to conceptualize that. The other huge one that we are really asking for help on is always repeat the question into the microphone. All of us, as we age, get a little bit harder of hearing. Some it happens before. So you again create that welcoming environment if you repeat questions into the microphone so that everyone can hear and is at the same baseline. You're going to hear me say this a couple times. Most of our rooms are set theater style. This does not mean that you have to do lecture. It just means that you have to maneuver and deal with this. So some things you can do: Monday afternoon, most of those rooms will be at capacity. Tuesday, at various points, they will be. Other times they won't be. So you need to encourage people to come and sit near each other. for activities. You can easily in a seat just turn and talk to your neighbor. You don't have to have a table to do discussions. I will say for case study analysis, we did try to put those in rooms that have some tables because hopefully case study analysis, hopefully you all are coming up with some questions for the case study analysis. We'll get into that. And you may want to print those out and bring them. And so tables would be helpful. But theater should not be the reason you can't do this interaction. You just have to be a little bit more creative. You can ask your assistant facilitator to help as people come in, encourage them to move up. Speakers, that's a great thing that you can help with. Hey, why don't you come up a little bit and get people sitting? So if you're a if you're a facilitator, make sure you guys are having calls ahead of WEFTEC. Make sure you ask your speaker for the proper pronunciation of their name. Practice saying their name before you get to WEFTEC with the correct pronunciation. And then rather than reading a bio, WEF staff will provide printed bios for each session. Hint to those speakers, you have until Friday to enter your bio into the speaker portal. We will begin the report printout on Monday. Anything we get in the system after Monday will not get shared with your facilitators, but only share one or two important facts. Please don't read the whole bio. That takes time and tends to set a drag on the session flow. So in interactive sessions, it's really important to warm up the participants to make them feel comfortable. So you can do this from the minute they enter the room. Assistant facilitators, speakers, anyone, you can ask, be out in the room, walking around, warming up them. Greet them, introduce yourself, ask their name, where are they from, what do they do, what do they hope to get from the session? Whole host of questions. Again, you can encourage participants to come in and fill in any seats. And then once the session begins, welcome everyone to the room. And you're highly encouraged to say what the interaction will be, whether it's panel discussion, facilitated discussion, and let them know how they can be a part of this and how you're excited to hear their experiences. All of that will create that warm, welcome tone that you're looking for. So some questions like on troubleshooting, things that are going to go awry. And I'm going to say this and give you guys some brief. Also, I'm going to say for the facilitators and the assistant facilitators on this call, on September 5th, we will have specific facilitation training, not by me, by a professional. And I've sent out the link. I have it in here for you guys. It is for the facilitators and assistant facilitators, specifically on facilitation. So I'm skimming the surface. Jeffrey will dive deep into it. So say you have a long-winded speaker and you don't know what to do, right? You will have time cards. I shortened them up this year. They're 5, 2, and then actually a little stop, like with the person holding a stop sign. So you can hold those up. If they take a breath, if you're up towards the podium, slip in, use that breath, like, oh, that was really great, and take over and kind of push them out. And if they're really off the rails, which I've never heard of at WEFTEC, so let's just say that, you can always approach the podium. If an audience member is asking an incredibly long-winded question, you can say, excuse me, can we get to what your question is? Or you can say, what is the question that you're aiming for? You can always say, I encourage you to follow up with Marianne after the session for a more in-depth conversation on this topic, and kind of gently push them off. You may at the beginning of the session want to say, initially, we're going to do one question per person, especially if the room is really crowded, and say, we'll take second questions if time allows and space. So if someone feels a little hostile to you, which does happen occasionally, I don't think it happens very often, but it could occasionally. We suggest you say things like, thank you, your perspective is appreciated. What if we talked about that afterwards? This sounds like it needs more detail and discussion. How about following up with the speaker afterwards? Often the key to remembering in this is this last bullet, which is often the room feels the same way. They feel that hostility coming out. And so if you kind of move forward, they will be with you and they'll be like, oh, thank God you diffused it. So do know that. So that's kind of the overall. On the interactive session agendas, if right now you go to the planner, which I'll show you guys afterwards, all of the sessions are in there with their engagement. All panel discussions should be set up the same way. All conversation input, all facilitated discussion. Our goal is so that facilitators, speakers know when they hit upon one format what to expect, but also so that participants know, oh, this is a facilitated discussion. This is how it's going to flow. And eventually everyone will get with the program. You can find it in your session agenda, as well as, like I said, the planner is really easy. And when the app opens, you guys will have that too. So I will start with theater seating again. I do want to address that. Most sessions are set as theater. It is not 100%. Panels do have panel discussions. Now, let me say this about panel. We have panels if WEF staff were told at the time of conception. So way back at winter meeting when the program was set, if we are told this is going to be a panel, we tried to put it in a panel room. If someone decided in July to have a panel, it's not in a panel room and there's nothing that can be done about it. So do know that. We have some of the sessions are in what we call mixed seating. So there are some tables for discussion, and then there's theater seating. We've tried to do that. I think we have 2 or 3 rooms. And so those are for, as I said, the conversation input. We put those in there. And then maybe some facilitated discussion. It's a hit or miss on that. Those facilitated discussions we tried, but we had more of those. So facilitate discussion, again, encourage people just to turn and talk and form little pods. That's okay. And we do this because, for instance, when we were in New Orleans 2 years ago, we on Monday were at capacity. We were actually past capacity. And so we need to have it set so that everyone who paid for a full conference could come to a session. We really don't want to have to turn people away from sessions. So we will go into some ways as we go through each format that you can help people. Basically, it's just telling people to turn and talk to their neighbor. So we have several different formats that are what we call interactive. We've got panels, facilitated discussion, conversation input, case study analysis, and we may have one knowledge development forum. Any of these become what we call interactive sessions. So I'm going to drop out of the slides for a minute. I'm going to stop share just for a minute, and I'm going to switch what I'm sharing, if it would pick up, because I think this document is much more helpful on this. So hopefully there is in the speaker portal an interactive session guide, and I'm hoping you guys had a chance to see it. This kind of lays out what each one should look like and be like, and answers some questions for you. So I wanted to go through this. So first of all, case study analysis. We do have a couple of these this year, and I'm super excited. So the idea is that we often receive abstracts. They're case studies. And so the idea with these is if we have a bunch of them, you could actually use case study analysis. So your speaker will speak anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Check the planner if you want to know how long. And then after each presentation, you will have an analysis time. And if you look, you need to provide some questions. You can either do this on a slide, have your speakers do it on a slide at the end of their presentation, or facilitators, you're going to be able to upload slides. And you can ask questions such as, what actions did you see taken? Do you agree with the actions taken? Would you have done anything different? There are these questions here. If you want, a couple years ago, I know one of our sessions did actually do printouts. And I will say, if I receive materials by August 27th, I will print them in our office for you. But you have to give them to me by the 27th. And then we could send these to your session, the handouts. But it helps people. And as a facilitator, your job is to provide questions relevant to the presentation, these case study questions, and encourage everyone to be involved. It's not all on you, the questions. Ask your presenters for some guidance. The other kind of cool thing, if you can do it in a case study analysis, is have the presenters talk in advance and line up to highlight differences and similarities. That's really valuable for the attendees. So then we've got our conversation input sessions. Those are, how to explain this? These work on almost any topic. You can do it. After each presentation, the speaker poses a question to the audience, and then the audience discusses in small formats the question, right? And the facilitator can add some extra questions. Generally, presentations are about 15 minutes and conversation is 5 to 10 minutes. You could do 5 and then ask the room to provide input further and come in. Again, this one, like the one above it, well, conversation input, I think we did a couple of these in mixed seating, but if someone's in theater, just tell them turn, talk to their neighbors. Your group size can vary on these, doesn't matter. You need just at least one other person to talk about. Facilitated discussion. Conversation input is in a little bit smaller pod, is the way I would describe it. Facilitated discussion is for the whole room. Conversation input is a small group. Facilitated discussion is the whole room. The biggest thing I want to say on facilitated discussion is it is not a Q&A session. Q&A is one way. It's me asking a speaker a question. Facilitated discussion is everyone in the room sharing input equally and all talking at once, right? And so the facilitator and the speaker should come up ahead of time with questions to stimulate that discussion. Speakers, I think we went more with 15 minutes and then discussion the other 15. There may be a couple 20-minute presentations and then 10 minutes of discussion, but we're trying to kind of balance this out. But again, please do not use it as Q&A. That's not facilitated discussion. Facilitated discussion is sharing experiences, tips, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and all of that mutually with speakers and the audience kind of on the same level. So if you want Q&A as the facilitator, you need to have the presentation time shrunk a little bit, have some Q&A, and then do discussion facilitated. Then we have our panel discussions. So panel discussions are in some ways not the hardest. They require several phone calls ahead of time because speaker remarks are only 5 to 10 minutes. And you need to make sure you're not wasting time. At any point, ask your speakers to reiterate that maybe some depth is in their paper in the online proceedings. panel discussion, probably you really need to work on what you're going to highlight and not highlight the same things among all 3 or 4 speakers. You're going to want the 3 or 4 speakers to all highlight unique, different viewpoints, right? And then the other tip on this is you almost need to view your audience as the +1. The audience is not just there for Q&A. A really dynamite panel discussion starts to bring the audience up as a panelist almost. So that's the difference in that. It's not just the audience is a source of questions. The audience can they can ask questions, but they can also share experience. So it's kind of like a mix between the questions and the sharing of experience and thoughts on that. But ideally, your panelists all have slightly different viewpoints. I will say a panel will not work if everyone does the exact same process the exact same way and is trying to talk. It just won't be that stimulating. You're going to have conversations about what you're each going to highlight. So it's going to take some prep calls. And I think those are all of our formats. There is knowledge development this year. There may be one, and I apologize if there is, but there's only one. So I want to reiterate that I'm going to stop sharing. If you want any materials for your session, please let me know. We will not have posters. We don't have big poster boards or anything like that available, but we do have things like I could give you guys note cards, or if you wanted to print your case study questions, please send those to me. And I see a couple questions, so I'll jump to those. The question was, how do you find out who the facilitator is for your interactive presentation? So I'll show you guys. This may be helpful for the facilitators as well. Bear with me. I need to log on. So I'm going to do a quick tutorial, very brief. First, I'm putting in the chat. Oh, there's poor waiting. Oh, I didn't mean to send it. Hold on. Let's try this again. Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen again. So this is our speaker portal. If you go to client login and you log in, this side, I go to client side. Please don't do that. I am going to, poor John. I always use John Willis's. Going to impersonate John. So this is what happens when you log into your speaker portal. Come into your dashboard, go to speaker portal. When you come here, I want to highlight this interactive session guidance document is what I just went through. I really suggest that you go to that. And then let's look at a session. If you click the event title, in it, it will show you who your facilitators are. Assistant facilitator, lead facilitators. If you click their names, which you guys can't see, it brings up contact information. So click the name and you will get access. Chair and vice chair are the symposia leads. So if you never hear from your facilitator or assistant facilitator, you could bump up to your chair and vice chair. We tell you what your engagement activity is and what the learning objectives are for this session and what we want people to walk away with. And then the other presentations, speakers are who you all should be if you're a facilitator, assistant facilitator, or if you're curious as another speaker in the session. I'm going to temporarily stop share and I'm going to, I was going to show you guys something else. Sorry, it is that kind of day. Does that help you guys with where you find the information on that? Are there any other questions? The other one I'm going to put in the chat for the facilitators and assistant facilitators in the group. This is the link to the September 5th facilitation training that I'm not running, that Jeffrey Kafude will be running. And this has been a hot button of the program committee leadership that we do this. So we are finally doing it. It'll be 1 hour and there will be a pre-video that I should have in a week or two for you guys to watch in advance and then go to the live training and do that. Any other questions? All right, if not, we look forward to seeing you guys at WEFTEC. If you have any questions, please email speakers@wef.org. I'll put it in the chat so you guys know, and we're here to help. If you need help figuring out what the heck to do with your session and how to manage it, please reach out to me directly. I love these kind of things and would love to help you guys. So I am here as a resource. Don't feel bad reaching out to me. Thank you and have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.